So that's a bit bloody exciting. It's finally been confirmed, this series that has been talked about pretty much back since Discovery Season 2. It's happening. Star Trek Section 31 has been greenlit. It's coming. There's a caveat. Michelle Yeoh is returning to the part, and before anything else, let me just read this beautiful statement from her. I'm beyond thrilled to return to my Star Trek family and to the role I've loved for so long. Section 31 has been near and dear to my heart since I began the journey of playing Philippa all the way back when this new golden age of Star Trek launched. To see her finally get her moment is a dream come true in a year that's shown me the incredible power of never giving up on your dreams. We can't wait to share what's in store with you, and until then, live long and prosper, unless Emperor Giorgio decrees otherwise. That's right, Michelle Yeoh herself is incredibly excited to come back and do this movie. Yes, that's the big difference. It's not going to be a series, it's going to be a movie event exclusively on Paramount+. Now, so the first thing that we were chatting about in Trek Culture Terrace was, does that make this Star Trek 14? No, I suppose the way to think about this is like a long trek. So, we're not looking at, Calypso or anything like that. This is going to be Section 31, a full feature-length episode. It's a bit like, things like All Good Things, Dark Frontier, those kind of specials. To us, this makes perfect sense for a couple of reasons. First, and most importantly, is that the fact that it's happening at all is bloody impressive. Like, can you imagine how busy Michelle Yeoh must be? Did anyone else catch that little bit of news? A few weeks ago where she took home that rather important statue. I can only imagine her bookings have gone through the roof. So confirming this now is a big deal for Star Trek. So that's the first thing. The second is that we have wondered along the way, how would a series about Section 31 work? I have often decried how much I wasn't happy with the amount of exposure Section 31 was getting. I mean, can you imagine how frustrated members of the Obsidian Order or the Tal Shiar would be about, Section 31 having their own parade down the middle of San Francisco, which is kind of what it's got to. Whereas if you do a movie event, you can have a completely closed story away from everything else and without having it tie into the greater plot of everything. It would also hopefully go away toward dealing a little bit with some of the not great flavour that was left in our mouths from the actions of Section 31, particularly in the most recent series of Star Trek Picard, Looking at You, Torturing Changelings. So let's see. Obviously, we've no idea at this stage what it's going to be about, but I think a standalone movie would be able to shine a bit of light and yet still keep it shadowy. There's also, of course, the question of when it is set. So the release says Philippa Georgiou joins Section 31. Okay, now let's look at the exact wording of this. In Star Trek Section 31, Emperor Philippa Georgiou joins a secret division of Starfleet tasked with protecting the United Federation of Planets and faces the sins of her past. Okay, at no point in that release does it say that this is the first time she joins Section 31. So think about where we last saw Emperor Georgiou. She had just been through Carl, she had been through all of that character development with her substitute daughter, Michael Burnham, and of course we had seen her interacting with characters like Pike, like characters like Kovich. We had seen so much character development in this once evil, now still very much guilty of rather a lot of sins, but developing person. If we were to go back to the time when she joined Section 31 for the first time, which would place it between seasons 1 and 2 of Star Trek Discovery, that to me, that would leave quite a worrying feeling in me. Like, are we just going to erase all of that character development? Does that mean then that the Georgiou that we follow in this movie can't become a better person, can't do positive things with a long-term outcome, because the Georgiou that we meet in the beginning of Discovery Season 2 is very much like, ooh, I got my own little private army with Section 31 here, that'll do quite nicely, sin. So I have no interest myself in revisiting that version of the character. I want to see a post-Carl developed character of Emperor Georgiou, and particularly the wording of the release that says, faces the sins of her past. I think that's going to be critical to this story. Because, I mean, if you think about it, the George Yeoh that appears at the beginning of Star Trek Discovery Season 2 has only existed in this universe for, a hot minute. So let's see, I'm hoping that I will take this as, she will have gone back in time and be dropped somewhere with the character development. Also, the question of, so let's say for a second that this is going to be George Yeoh post Carl, post Burnham. Right, where does she go? Does she go back to the timeline of Strange New Worlds, of Discovery Seasons 1 and 2, which I can understand would make sense? Does she go back to a different time altogether? Does she get involved in the temporal wars? Or does she go back to the 25th century? I can already hear it and that's some lovely wishful thinking there, which it might be. That it might just be, wouldn't that be nice? Now, Sean, go down and sit down and have a cup of tea. What it could do, not only would it be, fun to see this character who is quintessentially Star Trek Discovery interacting with legacy characters. As of recording of this, there's no announcement or, anything to do with Star Trek Legacy. This could be a handy way of having this crossover. If you look, we did a video previously about, why Wesley Crusher should appear in Star Trek Discovery. He can hop around time, he's a traveler. It would be great to see him in the 32nd century, tying TNG to Discovery. Actually, here's a way of doing that too, having George Yeoh interact with some of the people of this timeline. Dr. Bashir would probably be a pretty good one to interact with. But anyway, that I think would be a really interesting way of telling this story. Yes, I won't lie, there could be a gimmick of dropping George Yeoh in the 25th century. It would be like, okay, grand, we have another version of Stranger in a Strange Land, but there would already be so much story to work with, and you can still see with the development this butting of heads of like, I thought this was an enlightened time. I'm going to head over toward that section of Starfleet, which looks like it's not enlightened at all. And then you have George Yeoh condemning some of the actions of 25th century Section 31, which would make a beautiful irony. Outside, of course, of what could possibly be going on in the story itself is who's involved. So we know Michelle Yeoh is involved. We can only assume that we will have the usual executive producers on board. Now, who's going to direct it? Or who's going to write it? We were wondering that, will they go with some of the people who have worked on Discovery quite heavily? For example, there's Olatunde Osunsami, who has directed so many of the better episodes of Star Trek Discovery, like really knows how to make Discovery tick. Would be lovely again to see what he can do in another timeline, in another phrase, so that would be super interesting. And of course, I mean, look, within seconds of this coming out, people were tagging Jonathan Frakes. I honestly think that man is never going to get to retire. I think that's it. Like, he's just, something will happen. They'll be like, so Frakes, are you in? You in? Yeah, you are. Come on now. So, obviously, all we know for certain, it's been greenlit. It's going to be a movie. It's not going to be Star Trek 14. It stars Michelle Yeoh, and it'll be out in the future sometime. This would have been really nice news to announce 2 weeks ago on First Contact Day, wouldn't it? Come on, Paramount. Like, look, we'll take over your marketing for you. All right, how does that sound? We'll strike a deal. It'll be fine. Look, I'm just delighted that we're getting this at all. What do you think? Are you excited? Are you Star Trek out at the moment? Let us know in the comments below. As always, you can follow us over on Twitter at Trek Culture. You can get us on Instagram at TrekCultureYT. I am at Sean Ferrick on Twitter, and you can of course catch Chris at Chris Edit on both Twitter and Instagram. Folks, this is exciting. More new Star Trek on the way. Yez all are legends. Live long and prosper, and I'll chat to you soon.